In this video, we'll be discussing Article 110.21a2, Reconditioned Equipment. This part of the NEC focuses on reconditioned electrical equipment. Reconditioned equipment refers to used electrical equipment that has been refurbished, repaired, or restored to a condition where it can safely be used again. This includes things like circuit breakers, switches, or any other electrical device that might have been repaired to work like new. So what does this rule say? The first thing it says is identification of reconditioned equipment. If electrical equipment is reconditioned, it must be clearly marked with the name of the trade or trademark of the organization that reconditioned the equipment, the date when the equipment was reconditioned. The second thing this rule talks about is labeling as reconditioned. The equipment must also be labeled as reconditioned, so it's clear that it's not a brand new equipment. Additionally, the original listing mark, the certification that shows the equipment meets safety standards when it was first manufactured, must be removed. This is because the equipment has been altered and the original safety certification may no longer apply. The third thing this rule says is approval of reconditioned equipment. The reconditioned equipment should not be considered approved for use simply because it has had the original listing mark. It needs to be re-evaluated and meet safety standards based on the work done during the reconditioning. The main reason for why this rule was created is to ensure safety when using reconditioned electrical equipment. Here's why. First, it's safety concerns with reconditioned equipment. When electrical equipment is reconditioned, it may not meet the same safety standards it originally did. The reconditioning process could have changed some part of the equipment, and it may not work in exactly the same way it did when it was first manufactured. So, it is important to identify it as reconditioned and not assume it's as good as new. Second is clear identification. By marking the equipment with the reconditioner's name and the date it was reconditioned, anyone using or inspecting the equipment knows where it came from and when it was last serviced. This helps avoid confusion and ensures that the proper inspections or testing can be done. And the third is to avoid misuse. If the original listing mark, which shows it passed safety certifications, is left on, someone might assume the equipment is still in the same safe condition as when it was first made. The removal of this original mark helps avoid this assumption. There is an exception to this rule. If the reconditioned equipment is used in industrial setting, where the equipment is regularly maintained by qualified personnel, meaning people who are trained and experienced in working with electrical equipment, then the markings and labeling requirements might not be necessary. In these cases, the equipment is reconditioned by the owner or operator as part of the regular maintenance and is properly maintained to ensure it remains safe to use. Now let's go over the informational notes. First is industry standards for reconditioned equipment. There are specific industry standards for how reconditioned equipment should be handled and tested to ensure it's safe. These standards help guide the reconditioning process to make sure the equipment is safe and functional. terms like reconditioned, refurbished, rebuilt. The term reconditioned can be used interchangeably with other terms like refurbished, rebuilt, or remanufactured. These all refer to equipment that has been restored to working condition. And third is the original listing mark. The original listing mark refers to the certification from the recognized safety organization like UL, Underwriters Laboratories, that the equipment met safety standards when it was first manufactured. After reconditioning, the original mark is no longer valid, so it must be removed. Now let's work through an example to help us better understand this rule. Imagine you're an electrician working in a factory. One of the circuit breakers in the factory goes bad and needs to be replaced. Instead of buying a new one, the factory decides to use a reconditioned circuit breaker, one that was once used but has been refurbished and restored to working condition. When you receive the reconditioned circuit breaker, it is marked with the company name that did the reconditioning as well as the date it was reconditioned. The breaker also has a label on it that says reconditioned, and the original safety mark from the manufacturer has been removed because the breaker has been altered. Before you install it, you need to make sure that it's safe to use based on the reconditioning work done, rather than just trusting the old safety mark. The equipment has been worked on, so it needs a new inspection or approval to ensure it's safe. However, in the case of an industrial factory where the equipment is regularly maintained by qualified technicians, this specific marking might not be required if the factory owner is the one reconditioning the equipment as part of their normal maintenance program. So in short, this article states that reconditioned equipment must be clearly marked with the name of the company that reconditioned it, the date that it was reconditioned, and labeled as reconditioned. The original safety certification mark must be removed because the equipment has been altered and its safety may need to be reassessed. The rule basically ensures that the reconditioned equipment is properly identified and is not mistakenly treated as a brand new one. There is an exception to this rule in an industrial setting where qualified people are doing the reconditioning and maintenance. The labeling requirements may not apply. This rule basically helps keep things safe by ensuring that reconditioned equipment is clearly identified and checked to make sure it's still safe to use.